And in fact, the name of the charity, Carbon Copy, speaks to the opportunity for people to take best practices and copy them.
Hi friends, welcome to Chain Started, to our series Change Trails. If you want to go quickly, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. This is a popular saying that emphasizes the power of doing things together. Given the scale of climate challenges, the need for us to come together and act decisively is both imperative and urgent. Today we are going to speak with Rick Casale, founder of Carbon Copy, a company that brings communities together towards a sustainable future. So hi Rick, welcome to Chain Started.
Hi, thank you very much for inviting me. Delighted to chat with you.
So my first question, Rick, is what led you to start Carbon Copy and what were you doing prior to that?
So in some ways, for me personally, Carbon Copy was the next chapter, quite literally, because I had written a book and the book was all about civic action and the power that we have collectively in the towns, the cities, the places where we live, to have a real impact, a real tangible impact. And that was, for me, very empowering to listen to the people that were telling these stories. And I wanted to do more than just write a book about it. I wanted to actually then roll up my sleeves and help amplify the stories, which are very inspiring that people tell about what they're doing. And so Carbon Copy, which is a climate action charity that's focused primarily in the UK, but I believe it's a model that can work in many different places, is really a platform for amplifying the stories and the examples of so many people that are putting climate action into action. Before that, just briefly, I was doing a number of tech startups. I've also in a prior life been in corporate marketing, and I've also in a prior life been a strategy consultant, and I've got an MBA. So very unusual and eclectic background, quite business oriented, and very much focused now in the non-profit sector and really driving a more purpose-led approach.
What year was this, Rick? When did you start Carbon Copy?
So Carbon Copy started over 2 years ago now. And I think what's interesting about the UK, obviously each country is a little different in terms of obviously the setting and the context. But what's interesting for us in the UK is the level of ambition that there is at a local area level. So in the UK, nationally, we are world leaders at putting out targets, and we are woeful when it comes to actually meeting those targets. I'm very proud of what we're stating. I'm not so proud of the delivery. However, at a local level, at a sub-national level, we have a number of different counties that make up the country. And at that level, people have much higher ambition. So at a national level, we want to get to net zero by 2050. In over half of the local areas across the entire UK, we want to get to net zero by 2030. That's 2 decades ahead. So there's a real passion about moving faster. It's not that we have to push people. The people are pushing. There's a groundswell. It's bottom up. And so one of the things that we can do through a charity like Carbon Copy is to make those voices louder so that our politicians will respond, obviously as they do in a democracy, to what people are hearing. And what people are saying is, we want to move faster, and importantly, we want to do it in a fair way so that we bring more people on board. And so this is a very long-winded answer, but that's kind of the context of the UK. And so we started Carbon Copy as a way to help all these local areas that essentially were moving in parallel with the same really inspiring ambition of getting to net zero by 2030, the end of this decade. But there wasn't much joined up action and thinking going on. And a lot of the learning is happening in real time on the ground. And if we can be a better conduit for that learning and that experience, then it'll stop people from reinventing the wheel. And in fact, the name of the charity, Carbon Copy, speaks to the opportunity for people to take best practices and copy them. You know, that there doesn't have to be a sense of ownership. We're all in this together. And if one area gets there and another area doesn't, well, it's to the detriment of all of us. So there's a real kind of collective feel around wanting to share what works, but quite often the people on the ground are too busy doing, and therefore it's an opportunity for us to help make those connections.
Wonderful, and a very nice name, very interesting name as well, Carbon Copy. So
thank you.
Before we get to the initiative which you are currently on, that is that Carbon Relay, why don't you tell us about the other initiatives which you have done in your short 2-year stint at Carbon Copy?
So I think, you know, big picture, from my perspective, I think, you know, tackling the climate crisis is fundamentally a communications challenge. It's not a technical one.
Yes.
It's figuring out what is the right way to communicate to people such that they see the benefits of taking action sooner rather than later. So a lot of the initiatives that we've done have been around how do we connect with a broader audience. I don't want to talk to environmentalists. I don't want to talk to ourselves. We need to reach people that are receptive and willing to take more action, but for whatever reasons are not, because that's how we create the social tipping point. So we've done a number of different initiatives. We had a podcast series. During lockdown, we did a lot, as many other people did, of convening people online through webinars. We had the biggest UK photography exhibition around the climate and the environmental crisis and what people are doing locally to address that, which again was a nice alternative visual way of making connections. We have mapped out the entire UK, 380 local authority areas, what their climate action plans are, what are some of the key initiatives that are happening on the ground, what does this look like in terms of emissions and other things as well. So people really understand what's happening where they live and the kinds of plans that are already in place that they can contribute towards. So that's an incredibly interesting and valuable resource. And not least, we have essentially created an online publishing platform to allow different organizations to share what they're doing and importantly to share their advice. And to date, we've had over 1,000 different organizations, large and small, that have published on our platform. And that's a really, really useful national collection of really inspiring stories that people can turn to at any point. Yes, they are very UK-centric. I still think a lot of it is translatable and transferable to other places. But also, again, it's kind of like a model that people elsewhere can copy. We're not holding on to this as something that's very unique. If it works and it can work in other countries too, then we're all for that happening elsewhere.
As you rightly said, right? So the problem is across the board, and even the solutions can be implemented across the board. I mean, personally, I have seen that most of the solution can be implemented, whether it is Africa, US, UK, India, or anywhere else in the world. So like the problem, even the solutions can be copied, as your name, Carbon Copied, everywhere. So,
Really?
so we had Glasgow COP26 last year, and now
Yes.
we are having COP27 in Egypt. And what I know that you have a very wonderful, very nice initiative around it. So can you tell more about this Carbon Relay which you have planned?
It's extraordinary what we are pulling off, and it's happening right now. So it's really quite breathtaking to think about the audacity of coming up with the idea of putting together the world's longest continuous relay. So like you say, last year's Global Climate Summit was in Glasgow. This year's Global Climate Summit is in Sharm el Sheikh in Egypt, which is over 7,700 kilometers away. And we wanted to connect the two. And we wanted to connect the two with people. People running non-stop, day and night. It takes 38 days to do so. It's never been done before. It will be the longest non-stop relay ever. And it's being done in the name of climate action. Obviously, because of the start and finish points, there's a clear link with that. There's a message that's in the relay baton itself that's going to be delivered by hand to the world leaders at COP. And I think that's very powerful, as opposed to sending an email, for instance. And also just one point, which is, it was very deliberate. We chunked up the relay into about 10-kilometer stages. Right. But we've said each 10K stage can have up to 25 people participating. So I'd hate for people to think that it's a lone runner. Right. That would be very miserable. Even if you are, you're doing it for a greater cause. It's really important that we are bringing people together. That is actually the essence of what we want to do locally and on the ground. So it's very deliberate that we want to have 25 people. Ideally, 25 people didn't know one another at the start. Yeah. And they will make those connections and bonds through the course of the stage itself. And hopefully those will endure in some way. So we're hoping to make lots of points of connection in each and every stage of the relay itself. It's also very powerful the way we've done it. So just the unity, the determination, the friendship, everything that goes into trying to make this relay happen is very much the kinds of qualities that we want to see from the people and the policymakers that are thinking about what we should be doing to tackle the climate crisis. So to me, it's also a very powerful metaphor. One of the things we did in thinking about the route is we wanted to highlight lots of incredible people and projects that are taking place on the ground throughout the 18 countries that we run through. Because often there's not enough publicity, there's not enough oxygen of media behind what they're doing, but they're doing incredible things. And because they're doing things that are local doesn't necessarily mean that it's small and has small impact. Often these things can be replicated in hundreds, thousands of different places, and that's how things scale, but people don't necessarily know about them or they haven't heard about them. So the relay itself, which is pulling in a huge amount of media, as you can imagine, we are shining that light back onto the projects on the ground. And that for me is a huge win. And it gets back to our focus on what people can do locally where they live to have a real impact. And this is a fantastic mechanism for bringing to a wider audience the impact of what people are doing on the ground. So it's actually happening right now, as we speak. The COP27 doesn't start until, I think it's the 6th of November. So currently the relay is in Egypt. So I think that's 15 countries from Glasgow, where it started on the 30th of September. We're getting very close. There's a water stretch to do. There's Cyprus, there's Israel, and there's into Egypt. But it's just phenomenal. And I think it's it inspires me. And when I talk to people, I'm also really grateful to hear that it's inspiring them. And again, importantly, it's not about us. It's not about the relay organizers. It's very much about the people that we're meeting and we're talking with along the entire route.
Wonderful. I mean, that is really an awesome initiative, Rick. I mean, we have a global event coming, and hats off to you guys that you are pulling off this event. But what was the trigger point of this idea? Because I believe this has never been attempted before. I have never seen a relay run happening for a climate cause. So what was the trigger behind this idea, and how are you managing to pull all these resources? Because I'm sure it would be requiring a lot of resources to put this event together, right? So how are you managing that?
Absolutely. So in terms of the trigger, it came about, we got into some very early discussions with the World Relay, which the team that have experience in doing mass participation events. And we're bringing the climate action, the environmental aspect to something that they do, which is typically just done more from an endurance perspective. So we don't pretend to have expertise in running large-scale relay events. what did it for me was the prior year. So as you mentioned before, COP26 was in Glasgow. And I was part of a small team that walked from London to Glasgow, which is about 500 miles, much smaller and very modest compared to this. But it was a similar venture in terms of what we did was we wanted to highlight projects and we held town hall events across the entire route. And we took 25 days to do that. And that worked really well. And so this for me was a massive step up, but it was the same kind of logic of this kind of event, flagship event, can really help lots of people doing exciting stuff on the ground. But like you say, it's incredibly daunting. I mean, you'd have to have a massive organization on standby to pull off something like this. And again, I think it's a really powerful metaphor around when you do something really ambitious and when you set your sights really high, it inspires other people to say, how can I help? What can I do? And in many ways, the bigger the ask, the more help you get. And that's really encouraging because we've got to do a huge amount in a very short space of time. And sometimes people think, well, no one's going to do that. It's too far and they're going to turn off. But you'll be surprised. You'll be surprised. And we have been pleasantly surprised by the number of people when we, in the early days, said, this is what we'd like to do. They would volunteer their help. So we have lots of different organizations, as you can imagine, from the designers of the baton itself that are award-winning designers. They designed the Commonwealth Games baton in Glasgow in 2014, through to a professional film company that is going to create a Netflix documentary about the whole thing, pro bono, because they want to get the message out to a really wide audience. And for them, this is their passion project for this year. Through to the car company that's giving us the hybrid car, because we have a support car, which has 4 support crew that have all volunteered their time for 38 days and nights. I mean, this is the people that have come at it from different angles, offering their help. Absolutely fantastic. And again, I think that really is a metaphor for when we set ourselves really high and ambitious goals that make sense to people, people come up and rally around that. And that's what we found with this one.
There are two kind of things which are happening in this relay. One is that you are creating awareness or kind of informing people who are part of this run, who are actually doing the run. And then there are others around it. I mean, through social media or through other media channels, there are a lot of people who are getting aware of the cause of this run, objective of this run, and what is the reason behind this run, right? My next follow-up question would be like when the COP event starts, what is that messages? What is that ultimate message or thing which you want to convey to the leaders who will gather there?
So great question. So we have a climate message that was written with the help of young people. And in essence, it's a message that's urging more support to help people tackle the climate crisis where they live. And that support can come in lots of different ways. It can come in the way of, say, quality education, so people know about the situation. Many places that we still need to start there. Education also in terms of what you can do about it. Also resources, both in terms of financial, but also decision making, having more devolved decision making as opposed to top down. So there's a number of different levers and resources that can be applied. But in essence, what we're saying is it's really important to tackle an issue as complex as the climate crisis at every level. We have to have international cooperation. We have to have national level leadership and positive policies in place. We also have to do our own thing individually. But the burden is not on us only as individuals. And importantly, in between what's happening at national and what we do at an individual household level, there's what happens in the place where we live. There's collective action. And that's where we're focusing a lot of attention on, because that tends to be overlooked and under-resourced. And that's a really vital cog in the entire mix. It helps connect individuals with national ambitions and policies, and how do you make those happen? Because you make those happen in places, and they happen in places with collective effort. So you really need to get that local action piece working just as hard as all the others. And so that message is really one to world leaders to say, when we look at what kind of policies we want going forward, we also need to think about the delivery of those policies. You know, I spoke a little bit earlier about the fact that the UK is a world leader when it comes to stating what we want to do, but we're falling behind on the delivery. And the delivery comes from thinking about, what do people need in our towns and cities and countryside to make these policies come to life? Because they need the tools and resources where they're living to make it happen. And that's really important that we think that piece through when we're also thinking about the kinds of top level policies.
So my next question, or I'm playing a devil's advocate, Rick. I mean, a lot of COP events have already happened. A lot of other events keep on happening, but still, as we know it, things don't go according to how they should be. Every year, United Nations will put out a message that we are heating up very fast and things needs to be done, but still we don't see much action, right? If I may say it. And they have reasons for it. So world leaders will come and they say that we need development, we need fossil fuel, we need a lot of unsustainable measures to bring the change in their respective country for economic growth. So what is your message, or what is that you want to convey through this carbon relay?
So I would say, so I agree with you. And I think we can look at almost all the COPs and come away with a sense of disappointment about what didn't happen. In many ways, though, we're set up for, if you like, failure, because the representatives are representing what the people back home in their respective countries want or are telling them. So it shines a little bit of a mirror back on us, because if we are clamoring for certain things, then elected representatives should represent our interests. I think, however, nonetheless, most of us are not sitting around the table at these COPs. And so those people have to do their bit. And I think activists play a really important role in terms of holding them to account. But that's not the space that I'm in, and that's not the space that Carbon Copy's in. I value the role that they play, but we are focused more on what can we do. They have their role to play. We need to hold them to account, and hopefully that they will also move faster and do things more fairly. But there's a lot that we can do with or without them. With them, we can move faster, obviously, but even without them, and this is what we are seeing time and again, people are making really tangible progress where they live. There is enough resources. There is enough soft power. There is enough volunteer effort. There's people power. A lot of things are happening, even if the macro conditions are not favorable. And so I would say that that's a really great place to focus, because there's that adage around action doesn't come through hope so much as hope comes through action. And if we take action, then it does build a sense of hope, and that we can make things better around us. And that is very empowering, and it's a very positive and virtuous circle. And I think if we don't take the action, then it's too easy to feel hopeless, to look at what people are not doing nationally and to think that I can't make a difference at an individual level. I say there's so much, I think so much that we can do individually. This local collective effort and the buzz that you get from it and the tangible results that you see, irrespective of what's happening or not happening nationally, internationally, is very powering. And it really creates a sense of agency that you have control over these things.
And I hope that, I mean, this collective effort of ours, people who are kind of making a noise, I mean, that is responsible for the action which we have seen thus far. If we don't make the noise, right? I mean, if people sit silent, I'm sure the effort would be a lot less. It is because people like you, people who are making an conscious effort to send that message to the powerful people. That's why we see some kind of an action, which is still far away of whatever is required. My next question, Rick, is like, do you feel that the onus is little more on the developed countries, the Western countries, because they are responsible for historical emissions, or do you think that it should be, I mean, the scale should be across the board, irrespective of the country concerned?
That's a great question. It's obviously it's quite loaded, and it's very political.
Yes.
There's like my personal view, and then there's also a pragmatic view. I think personally, a lot of the countries that have historically contributed to global warming should do more. And so I fully acknowledge that, for instance, the UK, as one of the biggest contributors on account of starting the whole industrial revolution, has created a lot of emissions. But then you get into the quagmire of should that be accounted for and how it should be accounted for. And it gets back to we are where we are. And we need to move forward positively. And in many ways, a lot of countries that may be at a different stage do not need to follow the same trajectory that some of these other countries have. They can leapfrog them. We are now in a lot smarter place in terms of, for instance, what energy should look like in terms of green, clean energy. So as an example, if it's possible to bypass coal and go straight to solar and wind or geothermal, do it. And then you haven't got the legacy of power stations that are coal-fired or whatever it might be. So I think there's a really exciting opportunity to learn from the mistakes of some of these other countries and embrace the next wave of technology. I think for everybody at an economic level, growing back greener is better, and there's huge opportunities in terms of the economy and growing in a way that is sustainable, and that's exciting for everybody.
Absolutely. I totally agree with that, Rick. So my final couple of questions, Rick. So what is the future plans for Carbon Copy? What is that you want to envision in next 2-3 years or 5 years, probably?
So I would say my future ambition is I'm focused on the start of COP27 right now.
Right.
My time horizon is days, not years. We got to get to COP27. We're going to deliver our message in Arabic as well as English to the world leaders.
Yeah.
We want to kind of see what kind of response we're going to get from that. Then I think we'll take stock. We're still very much focused fundamentally on the opportunity to communicate, to connect with a wider audience, to recognize that the people that are taking action are the experts, and listening and hearing the stories that they have to share, and just accelerating this learning, because we are running out of time. That's the name of our climate relay, running out of time. And so the more we can help people to learn and share best practices and move ahead faster, the better.
All the best to you, Rick, and to your team and wonderful group of people, that you take more such initiatives and make people like us more aware of the things which are happening, so that we become more conscious about the things which we do and we create a better planet. So my final question, Rick, to you would be like, what is your personal connection with nature? I can see 2 birdies sitting behind you. I am sure they are artificial, but share your personal connection with nature.
So yeah, they are artificial, but I am lucky enough to have a garden. I don't live in the city center anymore. I live more in the countryside. So I do have green space, which is fantastic. And I would say my strongest connection with nature is we have a dog. It's my first dog. I never grew up with one, but we got a dog when our children were teenagers. And she is a wonderful addition to the family and really helps ground me in connections with nature and with animals.
Fantastic. What breed is it?
She is a chocolate Labrador.
Oh, nice, very nice. Labrador is one of the most intelligent ones which you can keep in the house. So wonderful chatting with you, Rick. All the best for this carbon relay run, and I'm sure you are going to take a lot more initiative and make this planet a wonderful place once again. So thanks a lot. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All the best.
Thank you. See ya.
Bye-bye.
Bye.